Not many of you know this fella. He was a journalist who predicted Americans would sacrifice liberty to a government monster. That's what that means. Less people can conquer government, its bigness will swallow them up. Now this is the birth, February 19th marks the birth of the great American individualist called one of the most eloquent defenders of freedom in America. Garrett, who offered what Jeffrey Tucker called a sparkling vision of peace under the free markets. Now right here, right around 1900 began the flowering of the intellectual, a social theorist who knew all about nothing except how to subvert the traditions and invert the laws. The first great turning was the amendment in the Constitution in 1913 giving the federal government power to impose a progressive tax on all incomes, one of the cardinal points of the Communist Manifesto. Then federal government seized control of money, credit, and banking. After that, it was merely nostalgic to talk anymore of controlling government or limiting its power of self. Okay, no one can imagine that people would have said yes to accept the sea monster government. It was the dim out of the individual. They voted against it. They elected Mr. Roosevelt on a platform that promised less government, a balanced federal budget, and sound money. And FDR was the worst damn socialist we ever had. They never voted for the welfare state with its endless visa of confiscation, taxation, compulsion, and its police-like meddling with their private lives. Yet step by step they accepted it and liked it. They never voted for wheeling away the restraints imposed by the Constitution on the power of the executive government. The sanity of the Constitution was so strong that when Mr. Roosevelt proposed to pack it with the New Deal minds, he was defeated by a spontaneous protest. Nevertheless, by a series of reinterpretations of the Constitution, the reformed Supreme Court was so relaxed, the austerities of the supreme law is to give government a new freedom. Thus law is made subordinate to the discretion and judgment of men, whereas the cornerstone of freedom was that the government should be a government of law, not of men. Remember I told you that they changed the law, the judges became the law and not the Constitution. A momentous change has taken place in the relationship between the government and people. People have lost control of government. It is, I think, too vast, too complex, too pervasive to be comprehended by the individual citizen. However, the government no longer comprehends itself. The power of the individual to resist the advance of the authority has diminished. Even organized pressure groups no longer resist. They ride it out and use their influence to gain freer access to the illusionary benefits that now flow in all directions from Washington. The taxpayer does not tell the bureaucrat tells him. A vast impersonal power may legally be taken away his entire income. Various administration agencies make and execute their own laws, thereby existing legislation, executive and judicial functions, all three at once. The founders of the American government knew all government had certain features in common, such as a natural appetite for power. What they did was to create a government that could not obey such a law. When government goes into debt for what it calls public welfare, it extends the authority over the lives and liberty of people. It supports them. It corrupts the corruption of the people for their own good. As government expands explosively, the people became dependent on government. First enticed by benefits, and then obliged by authority to exchange freedom for status. The moral debacle is cancerous and possibly incurable. Unless people can reconquer government, its bigness will swallow them up. Now this Garrett fellow spoke boldly and consistently against the dim out of the individual, represented by the political centralization and bureaucratization of American life under FDR. As his Facebook page describes it, He believed that Americans were signing away their birthright of freedom through trading in the responsibility of self-government and self-responsibility in return for expansion of government. Having now moved much further away from what Garrett defended as limited constitutional government in Republican form, we could profit greatly from revisiting his insights. Now, I'll put a link down here, guys. This guy was something else. Sometimes we gotta go look at the past to gain knowledge, because that's where it all began. If you go all the way back to our founding fathers, and you read the Federalist Papers, you'll find out how far our government has strayed from the original intent. And that's where you got them by the balls, because they have to go by the original intent of the Constitution. Remember that. Thanks for watching.